2:30 in the morning, March 29th, 2019. Tens of thousands of people pour from the stages into darkness, searching for a way home across an island with one road in and one road out. The shuttles have stopped running. The pickup points are chaos. Security guards have no answers. Someone starts walking toward the bridge, then another, then hundreds, then thousands. A sea of exhausted ravers streaming across the Rickenbacker Causeway, 2.5 miles through the night, their phones lighting the way like fireflies against black water. Behind them, the bass still thunders from Virginia Key. Ahead of them, the skyline of Miami glows with a promise that feels impossibly distant. This is not how the world's premier electronic music festival was supposed to return, but this was only the beginning. 20 years earlier, on a warm Saturday afternoon in March of 1999, about 10,000 people gathered in Collins Park on Miami Beach. The air smelled like salt and sunscreen. The stages were small, and the sound system was modest. 3 business partners named Russell Feibisch, Ray Navarro, and Alex Ohms had poured everything they had into creating a single-day festival celebrating the European electronic music scene they loved. They booked Paul Van Dyk, Rabbit in the Moon, Josh Wink, and a local favorite, DJ Baby Ann. They named the event after a Depeche Mode album. When the sun set that evening and the lasers cut through the humid air, they knew they had created something special. They also knew they had lost somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000. But the crowd had danced until sunrise. The energy had been electric. They would try again. The following year, the festival returned to Collins Park. This time, the attendance doubled. The buzz was growing. Electronic music was no longer a niche European import. It was becoming a movement. When the 3rd edition approached, organizers made a decision that would define the next 2 decades. They moved the festival to Bayfront Park in downtown Miami, a sprawling waterfront venue with views of Biscayne Bay and the city skyline. The year was 2001. Tiesto, Armin van Buuren, Paul Oakenfold, Ferry Corsten, names that would become legendary. The festival was finding its identity. What happened next shocked everyone. Throughout the 2000s, the festival grew. 40,000 attendees by 2006, the move to Bicentennial Park, the expansion to 2 days. In 2005, Carl Cox partnered with organizers to create the Carl Cox and Friends Arena, a space that would become sacred ground for techno purists. The lineup began to include crossover acts, the Black Eyed Peas, The Prodigy, and Perry Farrell. Electronic music was breaking into the mainstream, and the festival was at the center of the earthquake. Then came 2011. For the first time in its history, the festival sold out. It expanded to 3 days, Friday through Sunday, a full weekend pilgrimage. The following year, the festival returned to Bayfront Park after construction at Bicentennial, and something extraordinary happened. Organizers decided to live stream the entire event. Cameras captured every moment, every drop, every crowd reaction. Suddenly, the festival was not just happening in Miami, it was happening everywhere. Bedrooms in Tokyo, living rooms in Sao Paulo, dorm rooms in London. The audience was global. The stakes were higher than ever. In 2013, to celebrate its 15th anniversary, the festival took place across 2 consecutive weekends, 330,000 people. The economic impact on the city was staggering. Hotel rooms filled, restaurants overflowed, the entire city transformed into a pulsing celebration of sound and light. When tickets went on sale for 2014, they sold out in under 5 minutes. This was no longer a festival, it was a cultural phenomenon, yet the truth was far more complicated. Beneath the pyrotechnics and the laser shows, tension was building. Downtown Miami had changed. Where warehouses and empty lots once stood, luxury condominiums now rose into the sky. The people who bought million-dollar apartments overlooking Biscayne Bay had not signed up to live next to the world's loudest party. Noise complaints flooded city offices, the bass rattled windows, the crowds clogged streets, residents demanded action, city commissioners listened. The relationship between the festival and its home was beginning to fracture. In 2014, on the first night of the festival, hundreds of people without tickets rushed a weak point in the security fence. They trampled a 29-year-old security guard named Erica Mack, leaving her with a brain bleed, skull fractures, and broken bones. The incident made national news. Critics called for the festival to be shut down. The pressure mounted. Organizers responded by banning anyone under 18. They hired the retiring Miami Beach police chief to oversee security. They promised reform. But the damage was done. For the next 4 years, the festival continued. The lineups remained stellar. The production grew more elaborate. deadmau5 unveiled his Cube 3.0 stage setup. Swedish House Mafia reunited. Avicii played what would become one of his final performances before retiring from touring. The live streams continued to break records, but behind closed doors, city officials were preparing for war. On September 27, 2018, the Miami City Commission held a vote. The festival had been at Bayfront Park for most of its existence. It had generated nearly $1 billion in economic impact for the city since 2012. $168 million in 2018 alone. None of it mattered. The commissioners voted unanimously to deny the festival's contract. Noise complaints, traffic concerns, pressure from wealthy residents, the festival was being evicted from its home. Organizers had 6 months to find a new location. Virginia Key seemed like a solution. It was a barrier island accessible by causeway, with space for multiple stages and far enough from downtown condos to avoid the noise complaints. In November of 2018, after heated debate, the city approved the move. The festival would take place at the Miami Marine Stadium parking lot and historic Virginia Key Beach Park. Organizers paid $2 million in fees, they hired environmental consultants, and they promised shuttle services. They assured everyone it would work. But there was a problem no one wanted to acknowledge. Virginia Key had one road in and one road out, the Rickenbacker Causeway, and the festival would be hosting 50,000 people per day. The first night, March 29, 2019, the transportation system collapsed completely. Shuttle lines stretched into chaos. Staff members gave conflicting directions. A car accident blocked the causeway. Thousands of people were stranded. Some waited hours. Others gave up and started walking 2.5 miles across the William Powell Bridge in the darkness. Rideshare drivers refused to navigate the gridlock. Social media erupted. Photos and videos flooded the internet. People compared it to the Fyre Festival disaster. The festival that had defined elegance and professionalism for 2 decades was now a logistical nightmare broadcast to millions. The second and third days improved slightly. More buses, better communication, but the damage was irreversible. The stages were crammed into 17 acres instead of Bayfront's 32. Sound bled between performances. A palm tree caught fire. Environmental groups reported that fish in nearby waters showed stress hormone levels comparable to being chased by predators. The music was still there. The artists still performed. But the magic was gone. On May 8, 2019, festival organizers released a statement. After surveying 20,000 attendees, they had made a decision. The festival experience on Virginia Key was simply not good. They would not be returning. They announced plans to move to a new location in South Florida, possibly outside Miami entirely. The Homestead Miami Speedway was rumored. The city that had forced the festival out was about to lose it forever. But something unexpected happened. City officials began to panic. The economic reports were undeniable. The festival generated hundreds of millions of dollars. It employed thousands. It brought global attention to Miami during a critical week every March. Losing it would be a disaster. On May 19th, just 11 days after the festival announced its departure, Commissioner Keon Hardiman introduced a resolution, a proposal to negotiate the festival's return to Bayfront Park, the very place that had unanimously rejected it 8 months earlier. The negotiations were tense. Money became the central issue. The city claimed the festival owed $475,000 for equipment purchased during previous years, body armor, and all-terrain vehicles. The festival disputed the charges. They agreed to pay $308,000. They agreed to pay $2 million annually for the venue. They agreed to reduce sound levels from 110 decibels to 102. They agreed to eliminate one stage. They agreed to stricter curfews. On July 25, 2019, the commission voted 3 in favor, 2 against. The festival was coming home. The announcement felt surreal. Residents who had fought for years to remove the festival protested in white shirts that read, "Save Bayfront Park." But the decision was made, tickets went on sale. The date was set March 20th through 22nd, 2020. The festival would reclaim its throne at the waterfront where it belonged. Organizers adapted the Resistance Island concept from Virginia Key into something called the Cove, an alcove overlooking the bay designed for house and techno lovers. The lineup began to take shape. Everything was ready. Then the world stopped. The COVID-19 pandemic arrived in March of 2020. The festival was canceled. The city went silent. The following year, 2021, it was canceled again. 2 full years without the event that had defined Miami's music culture for over 2 decades. The economic impact was devastating. The emotional impact was worse. Fans wondered if the festival would ever recover, if the magic could be recaptured after so much chaos and loss. March 25th, 2022. Bayfront Park. 165,000 people from over 100 countries descended on downtown Miami. The festival was back. The stages rose into the sky. The lasers carved patterns through the smoke. Kygo, Martin Garrix, Alice in Wonderland. The lineup was stacked. But everyone was waiting for Sunday night, for the closing act, for the blurred name on the poster that organizers had kept secret, for the announcement of one of the most iconic artists in electronic music history. At 9 o'clock, the main stage erupted in light and sound. A figure appeared through the smoke. Hardwell, the Dutch producer who had performed at the festival every year from 2012 to 2018 before retiring at age 30. 4 years of silence, 4 years away from the stage. He had been rumored, speculated, anticipated. Now he was here. 150,000 people packed the main stage area. The live stream broke every viewing record in the festival's history. For 60 minutes, he unleashed a new sound, darker, harder, techno-infused. This was not the Hardwell the world remembered. This was something evolved, something transformed. He announced a new album, a world tour, a rebirth. The festival had survived. It had been exiled. It had been broken. It had been forced to reinvent itself. And now, standing at the same waterfront where it all began, it had reclaimed everything it lost. In May of 2022, the festival and the city signed a landmark 5-year agreement. Through 2027, Bayfront Park would remain home. The relationship that had nearly ended in bitterness was rebuilt on mutual respect and compromise. The festival had learned to adapt. The city had learned its value. Together, they would write the next chapter. What survives is not always what remains unchanged, but what refuses to disappear when everything falls apart.